You are listening to Startup Lessons, a leading podcast series where you get startup lessons from global business gurus, business leaders, and Ivy League universities. This startup series is brought to you by www.startup.tk. Today's episode is...
Okay, so today we're going deep on something pretty fundamental to any startup, right? How do we actually know if an idea is worth pursuing?
Yeah, that $1 million idea might actually be, well, not worth much at all.
Exactly. And we've got a ton of research here on like different methodologies, market analysis, looking at your competitors, all that good stuff.
The goal is to give everyone listening kind of like a shortcut, right? To avoid the classic startup pitfall.
The building something nobody wants, which, let's be honest, happens a lot.
Oh, yeah. Most startups fail, and often it's because they just skipped this whole validation part, didn't figure out if there was a real need for what they were building.
So we're really talking about feasibility, right? Can you build this thing? Viability, can it actually become a business?
But the big one, and maybe the place to start, is desirability. Do people actually want this?
Right, because you can have the most technically brilliant solution, but...
if nobody's interested, then who cares? So how do we figure that out? That's where all these frameworks come in.
Like the lean startup, which isn't just about bootstrapping, right? It's about testing those riskiest assumptions as early as possible.
Before you sink a ton of time and money into it, especially what they call those leap of faith assumptions, the things you really hope are true but don't have proof of yet.
Got it. And then there's design thinking, which is all about really understanding the problem from the user's perspective, right?
Absolutely. So not just brainstorming solutions in a vacuum, but actually going out and observing, talking to real people, getting that direct feedback.
Okay, that makes sense. And we've also got the lean canvas, which is kind of like...
that one-pager that lays out your whole business model, right? Who are your customers? What problem are you solving for them? What makes you unique?
Yeah, and you're supposed to keep iterating on it as you learn more. It's not static.
Right, right. And a lot of these tools really help you prioritize what to test first. Like, have you ever heard of the risk assessment matrix?
I have, yeah.
So you basically map out your assumptions, how crucial they are to your success, and how much proof you actually have for them.
So the ones that are super important, but you're just kind of guessing on, those are the ones to focus on validating.
Bingo. And a lot of this is less about abstract frameworks, more about just common sense, right? Like startup grind emphasizes.
Oh, yeah. Figuring out if the problem you think you're solving is actually a top priority for your customers.
Exactly. And they even suggest involving those potential customers in your product roadmap early on.
Which is smart. Make sure you're building something they'll actually use.
Totally. And then Failery, they take a really hands-on approach. 4 steps, set a pre-selling goal, create a basic offer, try to actually pre-sell it, then analyze the results.
So like, will people put their money where their mouth is?
Yeah, if they're willing to pre-order or sign up even before it exists, that's a pretty strong signal.
I like that. And we got a bunch more frameworks here. Harvard Business School, they have this 5-step process.
Oh yeah, you define your goals, your core assumptions, the hypotheses you want to test.
And then they look at the bigger picture, like market size, online search trends, but they combine that with actual customer interviews, early user testing.
So it's a mix of quantitative and qualitative data, which is smart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, there's no single right answer, right? The best approach depends on your idea, your resources, the industry you're in.
But what they all have in common is this structured, systematic way of testing your assumptions and ultimately figuring out if there's actual demand.
Okay, so let's talk more about that structure, that systematic approach. Market research is obviously huge here.
Yeah.
Where do you even begin with that?
Well, you got to start with defining your objectives. What specific questions are you trying to answer? What do you need to know about your potential customers and the market itself?
Right, and then you've got to really understand who your target audience is.
Yep, and it goes way deeper than just demographics, right? Age, location, that's just scratching the surface. You've got psychographics, their values, their motivations, their lifestyle.
Are they those early adopter types who love shiny new things, or are they more cautious, prioritize reliability?
Exactly. And creating those detailed buyer personas can really help. It brings those segments to life, makes them feel like real people.
And then there's market sizing.
Figuring out how big the pie is and realistically how much of it you can grab.
You've got your TAM, your total addressable market.
Right, that's everyone you could potentially reach.
Then your SAM, your serviceable available market.
Which is the portion you can realistically serve given your resources and focus.
And then your SO, your share of market.
That's what you can actually capture, your slice of the pie. Understanding all those layers helps you set realistic goals and expectations.
I see. And, just a quick tip for listeners. A fast way to estimate your SOM is to think about how many potential customers are there and what would they realistically pay for a solution like yours.
That'll give you a rough ballpark. And don't forget about gathering both primary data.
That's information directly from your customers, right? Surveys, interviews, focus groups.
Right. And secondary data, which is existing information out there. Industry reports, competitor websites, all that stuff.
And speaking of competitors, you got to analyze those guys, both direct and indirect.
Big time. What are they offering? What are they good at? What are they bad at? If you can actually use their products, get firsthand experience.
Makes sense.
And don't just look at their product, dig into their marketing too. What channels are they using? What's their message? How are they positioning themselves?
There are tools for that, right? Like SEMrush or Refs.
Oh, yeah. Those are great for getting insights into their online strategy, what keywords they're targeting, all that. And don't forget about pricing. How do they price their stuff?
A good point.
A SWOT analysis for your key competitors can be really helpful. Identify their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. It can reveal openings for you to differentiate.
And I've always liked the idea of a competitive matrix. It helps you visualize where you stand compared to everyone else.
Right? Really lays it all out. And all of this leads to that crucial step of actually getting feedback from potential customers.
This is where the rubber meets the road, right? Seeing if all those assumptions hold up.
Exactly. Surveys are great for reaching a lot of people quickly. And don't underestimate open-ended questions. Let people tell you what they really think in their own words.
But for really deep insights, nothing beats talking to people one-on-one, right? Interviews.
Absolutely. Dig into their pain points, how they're currently solving the problem, what they like, what they don't like.
Focus groups can also be useful to get a broader range of perspectives.
Right. And even just a simple landing page explaining your idea with a call to action can be a really effective early test. See how many people sign up.
And we've seen some inspiring examples of this, right? Like Dropbox, they famously used an explainer video to gauge interest before building anything.
Yeah, Buffer tested their idea for scheduling tweets with just a basic landing page and some surveys. Really smart.
And it's not always obvious, but I'd bet a lot of successful startups did a ton of early informal customer interaction, just talking to people, getting their gut reactions.
Definitely. And a key thing here is avoiding those common pitfalls, right? Like falling so in love with your solution that you ignore
the actual problem.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Mistaking casual interest for real validation, being afraid of negative feedback.
Which is tough, but you got to embrace it, right? Is how you learn.
Totally. And remember, validation isn't a one-time thing. It's ongoing. Keep testing those assumptions. Keep listening to your potential customers.
And thankfully, there are tons of tools to help with all this. Google Trends for market research, survey platforms, tools to analyze competitor websites.
So much good stuff out there. But at the end of the day, it's about putting in the work, talking to people, and being honest with yourself about what you're learning.
Yeah, it's not a magic bullet, but validating your idea is probably the single best thing you can do to increase your chances of success.
I completely agree. It's that continuous loop of learning and adapting.
And on that note, we'll wrap things up here. But hopefully this deep dive gives everyone listening a solid starting point for validating their own ideas.
And remember, this is just the beginning. Keep learning, keep testing, keep refining.
Until next time.
See ya. That concludes today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want hands-on help in crafting a marketing plan and growth hack your startup, get in touch with Aditya Basu, publisher of Startup Lessons, for one-to-one startup building and growth hacking advice. With Aditya's help, you can ensure that your team is well-suited for success. You can book Startup Advisory via WhatsApp. Get startup lessons from global business gurus, business leaders, and Ivy League universities. Visit www.startup.tk today.